Man, Syracuse made us sweat, but they found a way to beat Georgia Tech this afternoon, 31-28. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, Syracuse football is 2-0. They beat the 23rd ranked team in the country, Georgia Tech, 31-28 this afternoon. And my goodness, Kyle McCord and Fran Brown might just be a match made in heaven. They can't do anything wrong so far through 2 weeks. Kyle McCord is playing the best football of his life. Fran Brown is a first-time head coach and already has a signature win on his resume. Plus, the run defense. The much maligned Syracuse football run defense. They can't stop anyone. They let up 250 yards to Ohio. What's going to happen when they play big, bad Georgia Tech in the Dome this Saturday? Are they going to let up 400 yards? What's going to happen? Well, let me let you in on a little secret, fellas. Coming close. They shut them down. That's right. This Syracuse front took it personally, and the run defense was so much better this afternoon. We're going to get into it later in the podcast. And plus, the road ahead for the Orange looks pretty good after this win. Contender in the ACC? Maybe. They're putting the college football world on notice, let me tell you, after this win over big, bad Georgia Tech. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into Kyle McCord before we talk about Fran Brown, the first-year head coach. Kyle McCord had a great first game. 350 yards, 4 touchdowns against Ohio. It was a good start. Obviously, no complaints really from Kyle McCord. But how was he going to do against tougher competition? Power 4, ACC, 23rd ranked team in the country. I'm not going to break out, though. Let me let you in on a little secret again. But I will tell you this. He was pretty good. Oh, he wasn't just pretty good, actually. I'm underselling it. He was sensational. That might have been the best game that Kyle McCord ever played, topping the one that he played last week. He was phenomenal. The 2 biggest plays on offense for Syracuse in this game were Kyle McCord to Oronde Gadsden. Let's get into it. It's the fourth quarter. Syracuse is up 24-14. They just got a huge stop on defense on a 4th and 1 play. We're going to get into that soon in this podcast. But for now, Syracuse takes over at the Georgia Tech 35-yard line. There's about 10 minutes left in the game. What are they going to do? Well, here are the stakes. At this point, if Syracuse scores a touchdown, at least in my head, and before Syracuse really tried to blow the game, I thought if they score a touchdown here, this game is essentially over. That's what I thought. And, well, they drive. They get it to within the 10-yard line. But Georgia Tech stiffens a little. And all of a sudden, it's 2nd and goal from the 17-yard line. At this point, I'm thinking, well, you got to get 9 yards and then try to get 8 yards, or 8 yards and then 9 yards. You know, you run a play to set yourself up for 3rd and goal. That's not what Kyle McCord and Oronde Gadsden had in mind, because Oronde Gadsden runs a perfect post route. He gets open. There's a tight window, though, and Kyle McCord makes a sensational throw to Oronde Gadsden, once again in tight coverage, to put Syracuse up 31-14. And ultimately, it was the nail in the coffin for Georgia Tech, because they nearly came back, but that touchdown was so critical because it made it a 3-possession game. If they had settled for a field goal, it's only a 2-possession game. Syracuse would have been up 27-14 instead of 31-14. And now for really the biggest play on offense, because like I said, Georgia Tech nearly came back. They recovered an onside kick. We'll get into the special teams later on in the podcast. They scored a couple touchdowns. It's 31-28. We're at the 2-minute warning. 3rd and 10. Wasn't the most spectacular throw. It wasn't sensational, but Kyle McCord found an open Oronde Gadsden for a first down on a 3rd and 10 when they absolutely had to have it because Georgia Tech had all their timeouts remaining. They could have easily called a timeout right there. And next thing you know, the Yellow Jackets get the ball and they have a chance to tie or win the game. But nope, Kyle McCord on a 3rd and 10 finds Oronde Gadsden for the first down. LaQuint Allen then takes care of the rest by running the clock out. There were so many throws in this game that I thought were special from Kyle McCord, including that post route to Oronde Gadsden that made it 31-14. I highlighted a few of them. Second quarter, Kyle McCord to Trebor Pena on a 3rd and 15. He finds it for 32 yards over the middle. Once again, in tight space. First down, Syracuse then caps off that drive by scoring a touchdown. The Orange go up 14-7 in the second quarter. And then later in the frame, McCord finds Umari Hatcher on a 1st and 20 from his own 15-yard line for a gain of over 30 yards over the middle. It was one of those throws where if he underthrows it, it's picked off. And if he overthrows it, it's picked off. But Kyle McCord put it in the exact right spot where only Umari Hatcher can catch the ball, and that's exactly what Hatcher did this afternoon. And then in the third quarter, Kyle McCord was mostly protected in this game, but on the off chance that there was pressure, like on this play, it was a 3rd and 3 in his own territory. Kyle McCord stands in the pocket, rolls a little, shifts his feet, with a man in his face. He's probably over 300 pounds, bearing down on him, and he finds an open Jackson Meeks on a crossing route for a first down. And later on in the drive, Syracuse went on to kick a field goal to go up 24-14. And I actually mentioned that drive because it's the only time that Kyle McCord actually missed a pass. The only drive, because on that 3rd down, he had LaQuint Allen open for a first down on a check down play, and he missed him. He overshot him. That was like the only missed throw that Kyle McCord had. He was phenomenal. And if you're an Ohio State fan, you're probably seething right now. Or maybe you feel good that Kyle McCord is playing, but maybe Ryan Day isn't such a happy camper over at Ohio State, okay? Because this man, dare I say that he's in the Heisman conversation? I don't know. Maybe it's a little early. I digress. Just keep that in mind, though, because he's got nearly 800 yards through 2 games. What does he have? 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, completing darn near 70% of his passes. He's been fantastic. I talked about simplicity last week against Ohio. This game required more big-time throws, and Kyle McCord seemed to make all the big-time throws in this one. Fantastic. He gets an A+. He gets an A+. It was a perfect performance from Kyle McCord in this one. Now let's shift our gears to Fran Brown. Fran Brown had an opportunity in week 2 of his first season ever to get a signature win. That's exactly what he did. He gets himself a signature win. If you recall his predecessor, Dino Babers, his first season in 2016, he also beat a ranked team at home that year. And no, it's not Clemson. That came in 2017. Dino Babers beat the number 17 ranked team in the country, Virginia Tech, in the Dome. But Syracuse that year wasn't very good. They were 4-8. And I believe that game was in the midway point of the season. So Fran Brown makes an early statement as a head coach and gets a ranked win in just his second career game. Unreal. He is right now pacing to be the best first-year head coach in Syracuse history since 1991. That's how ridiculous this is right now. He has been great. They're 2-0. I can't really fault anything that he has really done. Yeah, play calls here or there, but that's just nitpicky. I can't complain about Fran Brown The only first-year head coach for Syracuse since 2005 that has had a winning season in their first year is Stott Schaefer in 2013. Fran Brown's going to pass that. They're going to pass that because Stott Schaefer that year went 7-6, I want to say, in 2013. Syracuse is going to be better than 7-6. Okay, they're winning 8 regular season games at minimum. So he's essentially on track to be the best first-year head coach for Syracuse since 1991. It's incredible. Kyle McCord and Fran Brown seem to be a match made in heaven. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about the defense, specifically stopping the run. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Syracuse gave up over 250 rushing yards last week to Ohio. That's right. They made Anthony Tyus look like any Hall of Fame running back you want to talk about. You want to say Eric Dickerson. You want to say Adrian Peterson, whatever it is. Barry Sanders, not really Barry Sanders, but you get the idea. And this week, you know what they did? They heard everyone. And they shut down Georgia Tech. Aside from a couple breakdowns, they held Georgia Tech to 112 rushing yards in the whole game. The whole game. I was setting the bar at 150 because I respect Georgia Tech's running game. They ran all over Florida State. They ran all over Georgia State. They were one of the best rushing teams in the league last season, and they have the same quarterback, and they have the same coach. They have the same running back. They like to run the ball. So my expectations weren't too high. I was just saying, can you hold them under 150? Like 149 would be really good. They held them to 112. That's why they had a chance to win. This defensive line played so much better. And the biggest play of the game, the whole game, not the biggest play on offense, not the biggest play on defense, the biggest play of the entire game was a defensive stop in the fourth quarter with about 10 minutes to go. Syracuse, Georgia Tech, 4th and 1. The Yellow Jackets have the ball at their own 35-yard line. They're down by 10 points. Of course, they're going to go for it. The big, bad Yellow Jackets, they're going for it. And you know what Syracuse did? They stuffed it. Loss of 3 yards on a 4th and 1. Last week, when we knew Ohio was going to run the ball, they couldn't stop it. But this week, they did. They stopped the run. They knew it was coming. The only 2 breakdowns in the running game for Syracuse this afternoon. In the first quarter, Haynes King has a near 30-yard touchdown. Actually, he had 2 near 30-yard rushing touchdowns. The first of which came in the first quarter with Derek McDonald, who missed a tackle about 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And then everyone appeared to have stopped playing. And so Haynes King just waltzed into the end zone untouched. It was off a missed tackle, which, again, you can't have missed tackles, right? And then Deuce Chestnut in the second quarter takes a bad angle on Haynes King. It was another 3rd down play, by the way. And he scores. So Haynes King was the only one really able to find a lane in this one. Jamal Haynes, one of the better running backs in the ACC, had just 11 carries for 35 yards. Nothing special whatsoever. Their backup running back had 5 carries for 5 yards. They shut them down. They really did. And I'm super pleased by this. And I think part of the reason why they were able to do it, I spoke about this on this week's throughout the week. I spoke about this. How are they going to handle a smaller, shiftier back? How are they going to handle it? Because Anthony Tyus was 6'1", 225. He's a big dude, and they couldn't bring him down. But Syracuse at least proved in this game that when they play a smaller running back like Jamal Haynes at 5'9", 175, and I'm not making fun of him, he's a really, really good running back. He's just a different prototype than a guy like Anthony Tyus. Syracuse can stop the smaller, shiftier running backs. So maybe size gives them trouble, but speed and quickness, not as much, because there were not a lot of running lanes open throughout the game. Really, the only gripe I have with the defense was the secondary, which was really good up until the final 8 minutes of the game, which they were playing prevent defense, and Georgia Tech was methodically going down the field. They benefited from a call, which was a late hit out of bounds, and it wasn't really a late hit out of bounds, in my opinion. I'm not going to complain really that much about the refs, but it wasn't much of a late hit. I mean, I've seen a lot worse go uncalled. And then, of course, when Georgia Tech recovers the onside kick, again, the secondary is just Swiss cheese. But for the most part, this defense did their job. They really did. They didn't even really force a turnover, but that 4th and 1 stop, it's kind of a weird stat technicality. A 4th down turnover on downs is not considered a turnover, but that really was a turnover. So I would say that Syracuse won the turnover battle 1-0, even though a turnover on downs isn't technically a team turnover. It's a very weird stat quirk that they should probably change. But I am not in charge of that, so what can I tell you? I can't really tell you anything. Syracuse, of course, had 19 missed tackles last week. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I haven't looked at it yet, but I can promise you, being there, they did not miss 19 tackles. I would say maybe they missed 5 at most. I don't have the exact number, but they did a much better job tackling. Their angles, for the most part, were a lot better in this one. The push from the front was a lot better on running plays. And aside from a few breakdowns, which are bound to happen against a good Georgia Tech team, this defense was mostly flawless. Don't let the final score of 28 points cloud your judgment on them. They were playing prevent defense, and they allowed an onside kick to go against them, and they went right down the field again. They pretty much shut down Georgia Tech for the majority of this game. Now, I do want to speak a little bit about the special teams. Okay? There was a blocked field goal, there was a blocked punt, and they failed to recover an onside kick. That is the only reason, or those are the only 3 reasons, why Georgia Tech only lost by 3 points. Because Syracuse, for the most part, they dominated. They dominated time of possession as well, which was going to be critical. I don't really know what to say about special teams other than the fact that it can't happen. You can't have a blocked field goal and a blocked punt, and when an onside kick is happening, you have to be able to recover the onside kick as the receiving team. It's just unacceptable. So that's what I'm going to say about the special teams. I think that's my biggest gripe for the entire game. The special teams was not very good. It nearly cost Syracuse the game. Nearly. But at the same time, I don't think the special teams can be much worse than it was this afternoon. It really can't be much worse. I mean, prove me wrong, I guess. But it's kind of similar to last week, how I said I don't think the run defense can be as bad ever again as it was against Ohio. And lo and behold, they're so much better this week. So hopefully the special teams can be corrected. But overall, I was super impressed with the run defense. The secondary was good up until the final few minutes of the game. And the special teams, well, they just have to be better, plain and simple. Now coming up, the road ahead for Syracuse football. I love going to live sporting events. In fact, I was just at the Syracuse Georgia Tech game. But to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter what the live sporting event is. I just love the energy in the building. And the way I get tickets for games is by using Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite feature is the curated deals. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So after a nice win, Syracuse football is 2-0. They just beat Georgia Tech 31-28 in the Dome this afternoon. Where do the Orange go from here? Well, it's looking good. It's looking good in Syracuse land, wouldn't you say? Because here's the technicality road ahead for you, all right? They got a bye week coming up this week, so they're not going to play next Saturday, which is honestly a shame because I like watching this team play. It actually brings me joy watching Syracuse football this season. I'm excited to watch this team play games, so I don't want a bye week. But they have a bye week. Then they return from the bye week. They got Stanford at home, so they should be able to win that one. And they also have Holy Cross at home. They will definitely win that one. And then later on, they also have UConn at home, which is the second last game of the regular season. And the reason why I mentioned those three games, which two of which just so happen to come off the bye week, is with this win against Georgia Tech, they have essentially clinched a bowl game. At minimum, that is essentially what they have done because they have 3 circled wins on their schedule. The toughest one is Stanford at home, and they should be able to beat the doors off Stanford at home. They will beat Holy Cross, and they will beat UConn. With Syracuse now 2-0, you just got to do a little math. Now they have 5 wins. And with their schedule, I think you can find at minimum 1 more. Minimum. So Syracuse is essentially by beating Georgia Tech in a bowl for the 3rd straight season. That's great. As far as contending for the ACC, this was a game that Syracuse desperately needed, and they got it done, thankfully. The 2 toughest games remaining on their schedule are at NC State and Miami at home to close the season. By beating Georgia Tech, the Orange have now given themselves some margin for error. Because you got to figure it's going to take at least 6 wins in the ACC to reach the title game. And the good news is that one of those teams who could have 6 conference wins is Georgia Tech, and they now have the tiebreaker over them. But more than likely, it's going to take 7 to get to the conference title game. So, your 2 toughest games are at NC State and Miami at home. All you really got to do is split them. Syracuse now doesn't have to win both to contend for the ACC. They can afford a loss. In my opinion, this was the 2nd toughest ACC game on the schedule after what I have seen through 2 weeks from Georgia Tech. They just got over it. So now they have 2 real tough ones remaining. That's at NC State and Miami at home. I think they can win at NC State. I don't think NC State is all that dangerous. Now, maybe that's just me being super optimistic after a win. I think they can beat NC State, okay? Miami at home is probably easily the toughest game on the schedule. They would need a lot of things to break right in that regard. But like I said, by beating Georgia Tech, they can lose one of those 2 conference games and still be in the driver's seat to play for the ACC championship. That is why this game was so critical. They have now established themselves as a threat in the ACC. Some part of it is because, well, Syracuse actually looks like a good team this year. And the other part of it is, well, their schedule is wide open. I talked about for Georgia Tech on the other day on the podcast, this was a game they needed for bowl eligibility. It sounds crazy, but they might not make it with their schedule. They have one of the toughest ones in the country. For Syracuse, we needed it for ACC title contention. We got it done. So now it's really on Syracuse to run the table on the rest of the ACC and only lose one of at NC State and Miami. If they only lose one of those games, they will be in the ACC championship, which would be unbelievable. That's where I'm at with Syracuse. By winning this game, they have effectively clinched a bowl game. They are going to be 4-0 for the third straight season. And they have put themselves in the conversation to play for the ACC championship. You got to figure that Miami is going to be one of those teams. Who is going to be the other? It ain't going to be Georgia Tech. It might be Syracuse. What a huge win for the Orange in the Dome this afternoon against the 23rd ranked team in the country. Is Syracuse going to be ranked? I don't think so, because at the end of the day, I think they had to blow out Georgia Tech, and the fact that it only ended up being a 3-point game. I don't think Syracuse will be ranked, but they will probably receive votes for the AP poll. So that national attention, it's starting to creep up for Syracuse. We're putting the world on notice. Kyle McCord especially, because he might maybe be in Heisman conversation once again. So the road ahead for Syracuse looks fantastic. What a win it was this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, hit that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And everyone, just enjoy the rest of your day, because Syracuse football is 2-0.